Welcome everybody to Office Hours. Today is December 2nd and we're full of turkey, ready to talk about SEO. We're kind of in still of a post-Thanksgiving drag, I think. I don't know about you, but I've barely gotten any emails from any clients all week. It's been great and scary at the same time. Well, as is our tradition, we like to start by talking about something great that's happened over the last, well, we didn't meet last week, but we can maybe talk about the last couple weeks. Who wants to kick us off with something successful that's happened to us over the last couple weeks?
I'll start. So I have a website that I've been working on for a client and I finally got it launched. So I'm really excited. I was able to move them from a really slow hosting company to a much faster one. And it went from a 1-page WordPress site to like a 12, 13 page site. And so, yeah, getting that launch was good. It took a little while, but we got there.
That is a feat.
Yes.
People don't understand what a feat that can be.
Yeah.
Allie, you were mentioning some success that you were having recently.
Yeah, while our website traffic has been a little bit slower than usual with the holiday, we have been getting a ton of phone call inquiries to the point where we're almost having trouble keeping up with it.
What a wonderful problem.
Yeah, wow.
It's a great problem to have. For me, it's not I've been on the phone with insurance companies so much that, you know, my head is spinning a little bit because they're not the easiest things to
it's
do.
Like they don't want to spend money, huh?
Yeah, but you know, it's been really great, and we're, you know, coming to the end of the year looking in a really good spot for 2021.
Great. Lavanya, you're hiding. You turned off your camera, so I'm going to give you a chance to think about your success story.
The success I had this week was that I learned how to put my business out there as a brand on the stage, like when I'm introducing myself to others about my business.
That's great. That can be really hard to summarize what you do in a simple, succinct statement like that.
Yeah.
That's great.
So I learned how to start off with a story and then tell what I do.
Good. I like it. My success was, it's weird, but I have a client that works in a very specialized industry. They produce industrial valves, which is a scintillating topic. I tell you what, it's so interesting to the people who purchase it, but to everybody else, it's not particularly interesting. However, we were able to pitch them an opportunity to write in a leading industry periodical for that industry. And it's one of those things, it's like, if I told you the name of it, nobody here would probably know what it is. But when I told the client, they're like, really? We get to write for them? And it was like a great pitch for a really, really good guest post in a really credible place that only people who are their audience will ever have heard about it, but those who've heard about it will be very impressed. So the CEO got involved with, you know, coming up with topics for it, and they were so very excited. Awesome. So it's so fun to develop that for a client because those don't come very often. We have a new person with us today, Steffi.
Hi, everyone.
Who's here with us. Why don't you introduce yourself? Tell us a little bit about who you are and what you do.
All right, my business is Evolve, without the E on the end, evolve.com. I feel very lucky to have that domain. It's very popular. I've been doing this for, now, web design and development for 22 years, since 98. And so I'd say I have probably one of the longest histories. I mean, that's practically from the beginning of the web in 95. And so I am self-taught, and I love what I do. It combines art with my math background, and I do it very well. I know how to make a design be developed exactly to what I designed, and work now with developers because I no longer have the time to develop. So I'm working on actually improving my own website's SEO presence, but also learning more about SEO. I mean, I've learned over the years and I can definitely talk about SEO. It's just, and I give presentations on SEO, but it's gotten so technical and so detailed that I can't keep up. And I felt working with David as my SEO specialist, who's offering this wonderful option for people. I'm very encouraged in watching the past few that I've seen, and I feel like I need that one-on-one with someone. And I'm grateful he's offering this, because doing it on your own, I tried and it was not easy. Yeah. And my success lately is I actually now am offering one-on-one coaching, because I offer it through Mountain BizWorks and Score. So I do one-on-one coaching for them, but I never offered it directly through me. And I just offered that. And I got my first client the other day who looked at all these other websites, was looking for a one-on-one coach to review his site on Shopify, give him advice as to whether he set it up correctly, blah, 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 you know, and got that first job. So I'm actually opening up another door of an option I could offer my clients. So that was exciting.
That is very exciting. Congratulations.
Thank you.
We worked together on several projects, and I can testify you do build great websites. So
thank you.
It's good to have you on board. So we didn't have any early submitted questions, so we could just kick off with questions that you might have. I have a question for the group, but you know, I'll respect all of you. So this could be perceived as shameful. It's not. I'm not trying to shame anybody, but I want to see where everybody is in the process.
So sorry.
And that's the answer I expected.
Yeah.
So I was talking to Trisha earlier this week, and I said, you know, what can we do to improve Curious Ants? And she gave me a super idea, which was make sure at the end of each step to say, what is the next step? So it's easier to go back. And so I've gone through the entire library and say, okay, after you're done with this, proceed to that. And then I realized that, like, if we look at, I'll go ahead and share my screen real quick. If we look at the process, you know, there are 15 steps. Okay, that sounds weird to even say, because like, it's not like when you do all 15 things, you're SEO.
Done. No.
Yeah, you're not done. You're just beginning.
Yeah.
And, you know, so the important thing is to remember, yeah, there's probably the right order in which to approach this, but, you know, there's one of these things you should do every 6 months. So every 6 months, go back. There's something to do every Monday. I like Mondays for checking these things. And then, you know, some of these things like writing a blog post, you know, you could do every week or 2 weeks, stuff like that. So I don't want to imply that once you're at step 15, you're done, because 15, you should probably be doing as often as you can. If you can do it more frequently, even better. But the other thing I want to make really more clear here is I have a little video. I tried to explain this spreadsheet that I'm recommending everybody use to kind of keep track of what you've done and what the next thing to do is.
Oh, I don't know that I saw that.
Yeah, we didn't see it at first either.
Yeah, it's kind of hidden, and so that's why I thought I'd bring it up.
Yeah, maybe it would be nice, like under 15, to mention it too.
Yeah.
Like,
okay.
Like, because I that's the, and that was actually something I've been struggling with. Because I feel like until now, I've like looked at all kinds of different like SEO. Oh, do this, do that, do that. Right. And I have like 20 different things started of this is my process. And now I'm like, now what am I doing? Because it's like I go through part and I stop and I come back and I'm like, well, I really need to add this and that. And so that would really, I think that's going to help me seeing that.
Well, and the idea here, this is kind of what I do for every single client. You could make a copy of this to create it your own, so you don't have to share it with everybody else. Yeah. But the idea here is if I did this on this date, come on, oh, it's still working. So I've completed this step today. And it then reminds me, okay, so in 6 months,
That did not.
it's kind of just being slow right now.
Oh, okay. I see.
Come on, Google
Okay.
Sheets. So now I know the next date to do that.
Oh,
And
that's
so then what I do is if I want to know what the next task to do, I just sort this. And so now it's sorted by the thing that I need to do in 6 months at the bottom. And let's say for some reason I skipped and I jumped to local listings. Next, all I gotta do is sort A to Z. And now it's put at the bottom of my list outside out of my, because I want to encourage repeating these tasks.
Yeah.
You know, I want to make, you know, write a blog post, please, but you remember to go back and do another one, right? And then some of these things that are more setup oriented, I tell you, in my experience, checking Google Analytics to make sure it's still installed in 6 months, so important. So many things can go wrong, and it's painful to find out that something broke and you're underreporting.
Yeah.
If you're doing, for instance, the Google Analytics dashboard, then you will already every Monday get some sort of confirmation that the analytics is working. But anyway, I designed this to hopefully help. So even though you might laugh at where are you in the process, which is a legitimate answer because it's so tempting to skip around, I highly recommend, you know, at the very least, first time through, going through these in order, and then setting a reminder for yourself. You don't have to use that spreadsheet if you don't want to, but set a reminder for yourself. Hey, in 6 months, it's time to check Google Analytics and make sure it's still on the site. You know, in 6 months, it's time to check the local listings to see if there's other new ones. And as I update these processes in 6 months, the local listing process probably will have changed. So you might find something new in there. For instance, like the local listing sites I'm recommending everybody fill out right now, you know, the best practices for which ones you should use to promote your site change every year or so. So if you were to go back in a year, you might find a totally different list of websites to which you should submit your business. So anyway, I'm just reminding everybody, friendly, no shame. Don't let it, you know, I just want to be productive and hopefully helpful. Any questions about that? Or is there any way I can make this easier for you to follow through? Tricia mentioned moving that up so it's a little more.
Yeah, I hadn't seen that, so I'm definitely going to look at that.
Thank you for pointing that out.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think when we first started out, we didn't see it either until he mentioned it.
Yeah, I think I don't, when we first rolled out, I didn't have it. I think I added it later.
Okay.
Because I realized it was super helpful. Oh, hi, Pickles.
Yeah, I noticed the first lesson I took just now, an hour ago, it was at the bottom mentioning the spreadsheet. I'm like, wait, I didn't see a spreadsheet. Where's that?
Okay.
And then saw it. So yeah, I agree, moving it up there.
Okay, we will do that so it's a little easier to find, and hopefully that I actually create a spreadsheet for each client that I manage so I remember, because it's really easy to get buried in the client emails and not actually do any work.
Yeah.
And this reminds me that there's something, oh yeah, it's time to do a branding check and see how people are talking about my business or whatever. Yeah. So, okay, hopefully it helps. Any other questions that we can tackle today?
One thing that kind of I was wondering, and I haven't gone through all of them, so you might mention it in a place I haven't gotten to. So we talk a lot about Google Analytics. Is there any other, because I think someone was mentioning like SEMRush and things like that. Is there anything else, like, is Google Analytics having it good enough? Or is there really not, maybe not even specifically, but something that Google Analytics doesn't do that we really need to look at?
I don't install anything but Google Analytics and Search Console on every client.
Okay.
Some clients use other tools. but we have to understand what they do. For instance, pardon me, if we're trying to measure how people find our site and what they do when they find our site, meaning do they become a customer, Google Analytics does that really, really well. So that really helps us to know that our marketing efforts work. SEMRush, or SEMRush, depending on how you want to talk about it, I've seen people try to use that to do the same thing. And that's a really bad use of SEMRush. Okay. Because SEMRush is pulling traffic data based on statistical sample sizes. So if you have a very small site, it very well could be that they really have no idea and they're total speculation. If you have I've seen a Fortune 500 company use SEMRush to diagnose traffic because they were not allowed to install Google Analytics on their site. Okay. With a site that big, the statistical sample might be big enough, but they will never really know what that traffic is accomplishing, right? Who cares if you get traffic if the traffic doesn't become a customer, right? We can do all kinds of things if we just want traffic, but do we just want traffic? No, we want traffic that I'd take less traffic if it meant I got more phone calls, right? All day long. And so SEMRush tends to focus that on things. SEMRush, will offer other metrics like rank, but
backlinks. That's one thing I found, and I have a question on.
Well, go ahead and ask your question about backlinks then, because we can talk about that too.
I found that to be helpful, and I was wondering, do you do your site audits with using a tool like SEMRush or SEMRush? Do you use this kind of tool for a site audit? Because it is basically doing site audits on various things. No?
Yeah, when I do a site audit, I don't use SEMRush. First of all, I only have a free account, right? Mm-hmm. I have yet to justify the expense.
Okay.
And I've asked many, many people, mm-hmm. why do you pay for it?
Yeah.
And I have yet to get a clear answer.
Well, when I signed up, I didn't want to pay that initial high cost. So I I did the free trial, and they're now meeting with you for 2 or 3 times at the beginning to help you, which is good because it's really exhaustive and really overwhelming. Mm-hmm. And they reduced my price when I wanted to back out, and so it's down to $50 a month, which is not bad to start with, but I foresee myself phasing it out. I don't want to use it anymore. I'm just using it now to really fix backlinks and stuff, because I have a lot of referral spam, I think.
Right.
I can show the screen.
Well, referral spam is really a whole nother conversation.
Okay. Well, you mentioned it in that first lesson, and I thought I'd ask you, because what I'm getting is because my site's been around forever.
Right.
And also people confuse me with many other evolved companies out there.
Right.
That they're listing me in these crazy ass directory sites or copying my custom designs into some portfolio that's just another directory site and linking to my site. And you can't even contact anyone from there. They're from all around the world. And I'm getting all these really bad links, and it's been hurting my ranking really bad, I think.
Okay.
Not really bad, but enough where I'm getting concerned. It was 6,000 bad links.
Yeah. Yeah.
And you can't contact them. So I had to basically to mark them as not a link to my site through the SEMRush tool, which is nice.
But that doesn't communicate to Google.
I was wondering about that. Does it?
You need to tell Google not to count those links.
Well, I thought that's what they're doing when I mark it as such. If
they claim that's the case, that could be. I would be surprised unless they explicitly make that claim. And I don't know of a Google API that would allow them to send that data straight to Google. It might exist.
Huh.
But you'd have to do it through Google Search Console.
Oh, great.
That's the official way to tell Google, I did not build this link. I do not want to take credit for it. Please do ignore it. It's a disavow tool in Search Console. So,
Yeah.
so there's a lot going on here, and this is a very,
Well, you do
very
connect
important
it
question.
to Google Search Console. I wonder.
Excuse me?
I connected.
Okay.
So it might through there.
I would research it to make sure that they explicitly make that claim.
Okay.
Because there's a lot of reasons why you would connect it to Search Console that have nothing to do with that.
Okay.
Okay. So let's confirm whether SEMrush can send a disavow to Google. If they can, great. Okay.
Okay. Okay.
But we need to talk about the bigger picture of when you want to disavow a link, which makes us have to talk about the bigger picture of what makes a link a good or a bad link. And so we're opening up a really large can of worms, which is super, super helpful.
Mm-hmm.
But I think we might delve into that because there's a lot of meat on them bones.
Yeah.
So first of all, before we disavow everything, we have to remember that if we go to Google and say, I do not want to take credit for this link, Google will respect our desires and will not give us credit for that link.
Are you
And
gonna
I say that to say caution, because there was one time when Google first released this tool, one SEO guy went and said, I wonder how seriously they take this, and literally went and disavowed every link to a site. Dropped.
Oh,
Yeah.
Right? Because links are a fundamental part of the ranking algorithm.
Mm-hmm.
I know people say link building is dead. That's a lie.
good link building is good.
Good link building is good.
Now, I
Bad
made
link
sure to
building.
check every one before I deleted them, but some were connected through IP networks. And if you deleted one and it said, do you want to delete all from this IP network? And then it would delete like 300 at a time because they were using some same network.
Yeah. So Google considers websites on the same class C IP address to be from the same site. So for instance, if you have one web host and you've built 100 or 1,000 sites on that web host and you build all those links to your site, Google would know. Google is a registrar and we know where all those sites are and would say, we're going to just ignore all these links.
Yeah, I don't know why they're not ignoring them already. I don't understand.
So what you don't know is whether they are or not.
Yeah.
Right? You're using SEMrush, which is a third-party tool identifying links.
Mm-hmm.
What you don't know is Google's opinion of those links.
Okay.
And that's where we got to remember the distinction between a third-party tool and Google.
And it brings me to the point you made about changing your Google Analytics code to a -2 versus a -1. Is that going to be helpful in my case?
No, because referral spam and bad links pointing to your site are two different issues.
Okay, I didn't know if they're the same thing.
I would, if you have 20 years of Google Analytics data, which I don't think even exists because Google Analytics hasn't been around that long.
Well, they don't save past 30 days, the last 30 days, right?
Google
They don't
Analytics
save my data anymore.
There's a change that they made recently, but it should do more than 30 days, much more than 30 days. So it's at least 6 months. Unless you've told it not to do that. But referral spam is someone injecting a referring visit into your Google Analytics, even though no one visited from that website. That's different from a bad link pointing to your website.
Okay.
So a bad link can only show up in Google Analytics if someone clicks that link and visits your website. Referral spam is someone saying, okay, they literally have a program that just iterates through every number that is a Google Analytics code -1 and this sends information into Google Analytics so that you will go visit their website. It's spamming the Google Analytics code to make it look like you've got a visitor from a site you never got.
And there's no way to tell whether they're using that or not abusing?
There's a couple ways, and in the process, I show a couple ways to address that. But I wouldn't recommend changing your Google Analytics code if you already are running one, because you don't want to lose that history.
Yeah.
So if you can't, then there's a second option where you can remove specific refers from that. And you can say, if someone comes from this website, it's not real, and just ignore it, Google Analytics.
Okay.
Of course, as everything like that, you're permanently changing your data. So double check that you're doing it right before you do it. That's why we have those 3 views: the main view, the test view, and the backup view. That's where you'd want to do it in the test first to make sure you didn't make a typo before you accidentally and permanently change your data in your main view. Otherwise, you could potentially really damage your data, right? And then it would render it useless. So just test any change you make like that in your testing view first. Once you've confirmed that it's working and not affecting all your other traffic, then apply that change to your main view. That's why those 3 views are so important in Google Analytics. And then you always have the backup view, which is never changed, just in case something goes wrong.
So how do you know, like when I exclude my IP from the test account, how do you know if it's excluded my IP?
So you should be able to go and visit your site when you will have real-time data.
Oh, the right now
data in
one?
Google Analytics.
Okay.
And then it will show you or not show you. Now, most residences don't have static IP addresses.
Uh-huh.
So I know I work from home. So if I were to exclude my own personal IP address, it would only work as long as I have that IP address. If you are in a corporation where you have a static permanent IP address because you have an IT company that's doing that, that would work. But if you're using the local computer or local cable company to serve your broadband, that won't work because they're going to rotate your IP address. We're talking a lot of things. I want to pause and say, everybody following us? Any questions so far? Lavonia, you're about to ask a question, I think.
I was, but it's with SEMRush, but it's
okay.
What I was thinking SEMRush was before she mentioned about backlinks, but doesn't people also use it for getting ideas for blog posts?
You could. I think that's one of the uses of it. I know SEMRush, like Stephanie said, there's a lot of things it does.
Mm-hmm.
I have yet to delve into it because I'm having a hard time justifying it. But I have a lot of other tools I use for these things. So I'm kind of like, I don't want to invest in SEMRush when I can do a lot of these things. So for instance, Steffi's talking about the backlinks, and SEMRush has a list of all the backlinks pointed to your site. And a good use of a backlink tool is identifying, oh no, there's spammy sites linking to my site that I didn't build. And then going and applying those to the disavow tool in Google Search Console and saying, Google, I did not build these. Do not hold me accountable to these, good or bad. But I personally use a tool called Majestic Seo. Sorry, it's called Majestic. It used to be Majestic Seo for the backlinks. This is a religious debate. I don't have a preference which backlink tool you use. They're all very expensive. Majestic I like because I've used it for years and the data is just raw data, and I kind of like downloading it to Excel sheet and playing with it. A lot of people are moving to Ahrefs, which
yeah, I heard of them.
Frankly, I'm seriously evaluating moving to as well, but it's more expensive than SEMRush. But I've yet to decide. I have till February. It's actually on my whiteboard back here. Yeah, February is when I have to decide if I'm sticking with Majestic or Ahrefs. So yeah, but there's all kinds of ways to look at the backlinks to your site. SEMRush is a way to do it. I don't know where they're getting their data. Are they doing it based on samples? do they have a crawler that's crawling the web like Majestic does, where they're finding and discovering these backlinks?
Actually,
yeah.
I just found out, I just realized the disavow, if you make it disavowed, it prepares a single file with all the backlinks you want to be ignored by Google, and then you upload it to the Google disavow tool. I forgot. That's how you do it. So they do let you do that.
So it's helping you manage them, but it's not sending the data to Google. You still have to manually.
Yeah, right. It's just putting in a list you download.
Right. So
for us that's looking for something like that, do you have like a checklist of like what you're looking for in a program like Majestic and what is it, Ahref and SEMRush?
I have not, because I've developed Curious Ants around the idea of not having to invest in extra tools.
Oh, okay.
I'm trying to encourage you to use the tools that you have that are free. If you wanted to take this a step further and invest in a tool like this, it will be helpful. For instance, some of the link building tasks like competitive link building, I'm telling you how to do it using just Google search, but it would be a lot easier if you had something like Majestic, right? I use Majestic when I do competitor link building, and I do it every 2 weeks for every client, and Majestic sends me a report of here's how your competitors are linking to you. And I look and I go but if I don't have Majestic, then the process here of how to do competitive link building will work fine.
Oh, okay.
Now, I want to make sure we're very clear here too. I started this conversation about disavowing backlinks with the reminder that Google takes this very, very seriously. And we got to be very careful of not disavowing links that are actually propping us up, even though they might look like spammy sites. I don't submit disavow files unless I have received a manual action penalty from Google. Search Console will tell you if Google thinks you are abusing backlinks. They will send you a message and tell you, you broke the rules, we are taking action. If I get a message like that, then I will consider disavow. I would be very careful about doing disavow without a message like that in Search Console. However, okay, so I will say that. 2, the next thing to remember, Google did the disavow tool, gosh, 6-7 years ago. About 2 years ago, Google made a significant change to their algorithm where they put an anti-link spam as part of their regular algorithm, basically saying, you don't need to disavow anymore. We're already ignoring the bad backlinks to your site. So I do believe that Google has the capacity to say, you know what, we see these bad backlinks to your site, and we're just going to simply ignore them. So I don't know how necessary a disavow tool is. Now, this is a religious debate within the SEO community. There are people who insist that you should do a disavow. I am of the religious opinion that you shouldn't, unless of extreme circumstances such as a manual penalty. If we think about it this way, and this opens up a whole conversation and a whole thing to be scared about, if someone can build a ton of links, bad links to your website, then they could take your website out of the search results by sending a bunch of bad backlinks to your site. That people who believe that's possible, oh, there's a name for it. It's totally escaping me right now. But that means what we should be doing is finding our competitors and paying someone in a third world country to build a crap ton of really terrible backlinks to our competitor sites so we rank better. That's a really terrible thing if it works. Google insists it doesn't work. Some SEOs think it works. I've seen people attempt to do it to some of my clients' sites,
Ooh.
And I have not seen an impact of it.
Huh.
Now that's anecdotal. That's my experience. Maybe they didn't do it. Maybe it was just my perception.
Isn't this part of a way? I mean, when you send out those bad backlinks, is this one of Google's processes where they'll ban your website or no?
Yes, they can ban your website for bad backlinks, and they will tell you if they do.
Okay.
So if you get a notification in Google Search Console, you know, and frankly, I have seen those messages before for my clients, right? And as a badge of honor, as an SEO has been doing this for many years, I've gotten my clients' websites banned from Google. One time, and I swore I would never do it again.
Did you get it back, or is it hard to get back?
I'm sorry?
Could you get it back, or it was hard to get it back onto Google?
It never recovered, but it hit them hard for 6 months. We did do a disavow, and they never recovered. In this case, it was a problem where a client was complaining that they weren't number one for their favorite phrase, number one for their favorite phrase, number one. So we said, okay, fine. And we leveled the gun and we blew them up with what we thought was 100 links. It turns out that the person we paid to do the 100 links paid someone who did 100 links. And then the people who they paid to do 100 links then paid someone else. So we ended up getting thousands of links to one page with the exact match anchor text, and we got a notification from Google, right? This is why I don't do this anymore. Learn from my mistakes. So I'm saying all this, Steffi, to say, please be very, very careful. It might not be the bad backlinks to your site that are holding you back.
Okay. Mm-hmm.
It's hard to say there's one thing that's holding a site back.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
It's always hard. It's easy to say, it's easy to conject that it might be one thing, but we got to be really careful that we just don't, blame one thing. So go through, it very well could be, but the worst case scenario, the worst case scenario is you're actually making it worse by links that Google thinks should count and is not thinking are bad links. Because if we were to believe what Google says on this, and we don't always believe what Google says to us, but in this case, I tend to, then if those are bad backlinks, Google is already ignoring them. If they happen to be good backlinks and you disavow them, then you don't get credit for them anymore, and then you end up having a worse time. So what I would recommend before you submit any disavow list to Google is within the game plan, within Curious Ants, there's a page dedicated to how do you know if a link is helping you or not, and how do you know if you're following Google's guidelines. Read that, review Google's guidelines for what makes links good and bad, and make sure that you don't disavow something that ultimately is good. For instance, it could be a very ugly site, but still considered credible in Google's eyes. Google isn't looking at sites to say, oh, this is ugly, I think the link's bad. They're evaluating a link not based on aesthetic. So when I did the disavow list, I had to train my team to make sure they didn't just judge the bad website based on how bad it looked. Sometimes bad looking links can still be very good, organic, natural, and normal links. In fact, sometimes really pretty websites can be very bad links. So make sure you're just tread cautiously. And I wouldn't attribute all of it, because if we believe Google, in this case, I tend to, they might already be ignoring these bad backlinks.
Yeah, and then there's this issue of, I am a web designer and I link all my current clients' websites to my website at the bottom. And there's, you know, these 3 types of toxic links. The money is the really bad ones. The compound, which is like your name attached with a keyword name, like Asheville Web Design and Development by Evolve. So we changed it to branded, which is less worse, where it's just linking Evolve instead of Asheville Web Design and Development by Evolve. But I don't know if I'm doing that much better or not with that.
So yeah,
and if I should even do that,
so that's the thing. Read Google's guidelines, and the fact is that money has passed through hands to get that link from their site, your client site, to your site.
Mm-hmm.
So those links in clients' footers might be hurting you.
I mean, it's like every web designer does it, though.
Every web designer does it. Yes. That doesn't mean Google likes it.
Yeah, I've seen some recently say that they have stopped doing it, but then there's still a lot that keep doing it. So I don't know. And the one like that I've started working, I haven't done it because I just haven't. I kind of decided.
I do competitive link research for all my competitors, just for my own site every couple of weeks, and it frustrates me to see people who are competing against me doing that. I think it's a bad idea. I think it is against Google's guidelines because money has passed through hands. You can no follow the link. And that Google accepts because, number one, the no follow says, hey, no link equity is passing because money is passed through the hands. And you still get credit for building the site. So the safer bet is to no follow the link. However, again, if Google is giving you credit for those links, the nofollow will stop giving you credit for those links. But if Google is holding those links against you, the nofollow will then stop making those hold against you.
Yeah.
So what you might do is go through as many as you can and nofollow them and see what happens. You still get referral traffic from it, right?
Mm-hmm.
Also, another thing is if you trade links, it can be a real problem. So if you link to a client's site in a portfolio, and they link back to you in the footer, you've traded links. That is explicitly against Google's guidelines. That's a reciprocal link.
So it's safe for us, for web designers, to just put no follow on their link at the bottom because you're already linking out to their site. Okay.
Yes. That's the safest for you. If you link out to a client site, you will help that client. And frankly, why wouldn't you want to help your client?
One question. So I have seen where, and I don't know, as far as like every developer is different as far as how they check up, and also like if they have them on a care plan and everything, but where a website is built and then that's put in the footer, and then the client goes in and destroys the site and doesn't think to change the footer. I had that, I didn't do it, but it was a client, and they had somebody I know built the site, and they had somebody go in, made a mess of it. I mean, absolute mess. And then I noticed that on the footer, it still had the other person that had did it. So I made sure that that got taken off because it looked bad.
Yeah.
So yeah.
These are tough. Link building is one of the hardest parts of SEO, but it's essential. And it's one of the hardest parts about it is figuring out what Google really wants and what you can do and what you can't do. Because there's one way to interpret Google's rules to say you can't build any links. Well, then can we do nothing? I honestly don't believe that's true. I think I think what Google's trying to do is prevent abuse. And there are legitimate ways to build links. But these are really tough questions. And I wish there was a really easy, clear answer to give. I tend, and this is probably a result of the fact that I've gotten a client's website banned before, I tend to play very conservatively in this game. I still build links to client sites in my own sites, I build them in ways that I feel that even if Google were to find out that I was behind it, they would say it's still a fair and legitimate link. And try not to trick Google. I'm not accusing you, Steffi, of trying to trick Google. Please don't interpret that way, because that's not the case. But I would review Google's specific guidelines. And before you can keep using SEMRush to manage that list of things that you might want to ban or disavow. But before I submit it to Google, I'd be very careful, because those might be propping you up, and it might be the reciprocal links or the links from footers from clients that might be actually hurting you.
Yeah.
So I wish there was a clear answer. I'm going to refer you back to Google's guidelines to read them and see for yourself.
Okay.
And you might have to do a legitimate link building campaign to make up for what you lose for those others.
Mm-hmm.
Unfortunately, I have to roll.
Okay.
This was a great conversation. I know it was a lot and was really heavy, but I hope it was valuable.
Yes.
Anyway, it's all great to see everybody.
Yeah, thank you for having me, David. I'm so excited to be here, you guys, and hopefully we can help each other.
I hope so. I think we can. All right. Well, thank you, everybody. Have a great week. We'll talk with you soon.
All right.
Bye.
All right. Bye.